Joe Lalley, welcome. You're the Vice President of Digital Products for MTV. Thanks for coming and doing this. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
I gotta ask. MTV is a venerable brand. It has many brands that are also venerable. It's an umbrella for a lot of brands. When you look at mobile, how do you feel it's going to influence the way that MTV goes forward, or how is it influencing today?
Well, it's a huge priority. We know that a very large percentage of our audience is interacting with our content through mobile. We measure that, we look at that. We also know that it's a great way to extend existing platforms, existing programming, TV, even desktop web. So it's a huge priority. We're heavily focused on extending it and finding the right engagement. We've experimented a lot. We found some things that work really well, some things that haven't worked well, and we're continuing to do so, but it's a huge, huge priority.
So are there any specific brands that you found that it works better on during your experimentation?
Yeah, so we know that the younger audience, very, very engaged in mobile. One of the brands that isn't as widely known as some of the others, but is really active on mobile is Teen Nick. So we have Nickelodeon. When you get too old to watch Nickelodeon, you watch Teen Nick. So it's sort of the next phase, and that audience is hugely active on mobile. We have our second largest SMS subscriber list for that brand, and it's, in terms of brand, not as big as, say, MTV or Comedy Central, but really active on mobile.
And that's just a demographic piece?
Yeah,
that's
I think so.
Purely demographic?
Very active, heavy on texting, very heavy texting demographic, so we're active in the SMS space with that brand.
We talked with a bunch of people on a panel here, and there was a discussion around the kind of evolving teen. Right? Yeah. So very early on, they might be texting a lot, but then they kind of come back to traditional means. Like I'd suppose that they go from watching videos on a device to watching television at some point. That transition happens. What do you see that they move from, say, Nickelodeon to Nickelodeon Teen, but they're still as engaged today as they were when they were in their earlier years? I
think they're just engaged in different ways. So I'll step earlier in the years for the youth demographic. So we have Nick Jr. Most of the activity on that brand is watching videos. Right. And that makes sense. It's, I've done it with my kids sitting at dinner, and they need something to be interested in, so fire up a video on your phone, and that's something they really enjoy. When they get a little bit older, they're more interactive, and when they get to the Teen Nick phase, they're able to text, they're able to interact. It's less of a one-way delivery, it's more two-way. So I think just the way they engage changes over the years, and we're lucky enough to have a lot of great brands that sort of hit each of those demos. So, and do you find that, do they graduate when they start texting? Do they continue texting throughout? Like, I can imagine that it goes from Nickelodeon Junior to, or Nickelodeon Junior to Nickelodeon Teen, and then they might get into some of the other brands, but do they still have that deep engagement through SMS and through texting at that point? Or? Yeah. MTV is a good example, so the demographic is a little bit older than the Teen Nick demographic there, but we do a lot of voting campaigns, and really, really active. Some of our VMA votes and MTV Movie Award vote numbers have been through the roof. They've been doubling each year, and it's a really active channel. When you look at it, North America seemed to be a little bit delayed when it came to SMS and engaging in this kind of thing. Certainly from Asia and the Far East. What were they telling you guys what was going on over there and saying, be braced for this, or did you have a lot of heads up around this, how it's going to impact your brand? We paid attention to it. Yeah. We were aware that it was more active. We also were aware that there were different models in use. So in UK, for example, premium SMS was much more widely used than here. Premium voting was popular. We just didn't feel that our audience was used to that model. It's not as familiar in the U.S. So we never went with that model. We paid a lot of attention to that. We tried a couple of things, tried a couple of models that worked in other regions, and found that in some cases they just don't work. It didn't work. Yeah. Well, I suppose that you can force it upon, but you have to be reactive when actually your viewers are waiting for this. Yeah. Or asking for this, I suppose. Yeah.
So when it comes to engagement, you are doing deep dives. You're doing SMS. You're doing mobile websites. What else? Does it work the same or different demographics for different types of activity?
Yeah, we're learning that. So some other products that we have MTV and VH1 have co-viewing applications that you can download on your iPad. The intent is to be able to watch shows, either premiere or replayed, and see tweets about that show, see content related to that show, and we're trying to crack sort of the riddle about how to really create an additional experience on top of our TV viewing. Something else that we've launched is around South Park, and that is less of a viewing of other comments experience and more of an interactive experience where you can go onto the South Park website during each premiere and answer trivia questions and generate point values, and there's leaderboards, and that's worked really well, and that is I think a use case that works well for that audience because South Park fans are big fans,
diehard fans,
and they know a lot about the brand, they know a lot about the characters, so popping up trivia questions during the show that may or may not be directly related to what's happening on screen at the time is just a fun activity for them, and it's working well.
And so that kind of engagement, I mean, were you surprised that there were people coming out of the woodwork?
No, not in that case.
Yeah.
I think knowing South Park and knowing the way the fans are, we thought that would be a good use case. We've been surprised with some other campaigns. One that comes to mind is every year we do a month-long competition on Comedy Central called Stand Up Showdown. And it's 100 comedians competing. Fans choose the winner. The winner gets a special at the end. And we were pretty surprised at just the volume of votes, the different ways people were voting, the different ways people were attempting to sort of game the system a little bit, and we had to pay a lot of attention to it. And we also were a little surprised at how the comedians themselves promoted themselves. So a few years ago when Facebook and Twitter started to become channels for them, they really used it and really informed people kind of for us on how to vote, and it increased engagement hugely. So
what about content? I mean, you guys are content creators, and mass content creators. How has that changed in the mobile space? You said that you're building tools or mobile tools that complement the content on the big screen. But are you building anything that's strictly for mobile, or how are you modifying what you're doing for mobile? We've had mobile only series in the past. Has that worked for you? Some have worked. Some have actually turned into TV shows. We also have found that just the content consumption habits are a little different. So shorter form works really well on mobile. We're not offering full episodes on our mobile channels, but we're finding that people really consume a lot of short clips. And we think it makes sense. The use cases for mobile are more on the go, more intent driven. So somebody wants to see something specific, they go onto their mobile device, and we try to tailor the content for that. You said that you've tried to bridge the gap between the content and the device with voting or trivia. Is there anything else that you're doing to kind of close that gap? It's a short distance between your couch and your TV, but from a broadcaster, it's a huge gap. Yeah. Are you doing anything else? We're focused on that. One thing we don't know is it's hard to measure how people are using this. So it's difficult to tie Nielsen ratings to engagement on an app or texting activities. So we're trying to build products that help us understand that somebody is engaged with the show at a particular moment and taking a certain action on one of our products. Those are the most valuable to us in terms of data. We know that was an engaged user with more than one screen. It's hard to create those all the time, so it's something we're really focused on. Okay. What about what? I think that's a challenge, right? So, do you have any other? What are one or two other challenges that you're having in that kind of engagement with your customers? So, another one is how do we use these additional channels or screens to drive people to other screens? So, a good example, we talked about this yesterday on the panel, was fantasy football. So, in the sports industry, people will watch a football game if they have a fantasy team and a player is involved in a game. They may not be a fan of either team, the game may not be that good, but they will watch it because of that. And we're
we're trying to find what is that for us. How do we engage users who may not already be engaged?
Right.
And the opportunity is you have tablets, you have mobile devices, you have these other screens which are with people all the time, and are opportunities to reach out to them and try to drive them back to these TV channels. So that's something that's an opportunity, I think. I think it's something we need to figure out.
Yeah. It always strikes me that brands like MTV are a brand, and when people talk about brand building and viewer engagement, they look at it and say, well, MTV doesn't need it because of what you do, but mobile does open up that opportunity quite significantly in order to be able to really reach your viewers. Is that an appropriate statement to make for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's accurate. You said it yesterday. It's the most personal device. It's with people all the time, and I've used the analogy. I've walked out of my house before and forgotten my keys. I've forgotten my wallet, and I forgot my phone. One of those three, I'm going to go back for every single time. It's my phone. So we know that, and we know it's important. So it absolutely opens opportunities for us to build the brand in ways that didn't exist before.
So what about the content? There's got to be some kind of engagement when the content goes live, when it's a premiere or broadcast at a specific time. Wednesday at 9, come and watch this show. Are you finding that people are still engaged with the traditional model of sitting down and watching that show? Or have you seen a spike on that day, but then a continuation? Does that content still live? The next day, the next 3 days? Are you seeing activity there?
Yeah, we do. We definitely see the highest engagement in the premieres. We do a lot of measurement around driving people to those shows and then driving them to content after those shows. So one of the things we do is we send a text message before a premiere of a specific show with some sneak peeks, so a link to a website with sneak peek clips. We also, after that show, send a message with links to wrap-ups, and sometimes those are exclusive clips. We actually know that the wrap-up clips get a higher click-through rate than the sneak peek clips, which tells us that people are really interested after the show is aired and want to see more, want to understand things, want to see it again. So it's definitely happening, and there's definitely a longer effect after a premiere.
It would seem to me like that content just doesn't live for those 30 minutes. That it continues, that mobile has the ability to actually keep a consistent hum for that content throughout the week, and then lo and behold, it's next Wednesday again.
Right, and it gives us the ability to push the content to the user. The user doesn't have to actively go and seek it and play it on their DVR.
Is that effective? So SMS, has that been that's a tool that you use. Has that been an effective tool for you guys for reaching out?
It has been, yeah. We've done a lot of measurement around the right way to message people, the right time, the right frequency, and it's been effective. It's a great tool. It's not the only tool, but it's been a great tool. We've measured what's the right frequency, how many times per week, what time of day is the right time to message people, and tried to optimize based on that, and been able to raise click-through rates, lower opt-out rates. But we use other tools. We use push notifications in apps. We use email. We use Facebook. We use Twitter. So I think it's a really effective tool, but it can't be the only tool.
Is it a hunch how you decide how to build an app, if you're going to build an app for a brand? Is it a hunch, or is it really about customer pull or viewer pull for you guys?
It's both, and I think if the question is an app necessary? I think we look at, well, what does an app give you that maybe a mobile website wouldn't? And there are certain things you can do, easier ways to tap into device GPS, device camera, calendar, things like that, accelerometer. So if the application lends itself to an experience that would require interactivity with one of those, then an app makes a lot of sense. If it's more of a content play, if it's really just getting videos in front of somebody, or news articles or something like that, then and it doesn't require all these deep integrations with a device, then a mobile website maybe is more appropriate.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the biggest challenge, I think, is the fact that nobody knows where this is going. Right. And you've got to participate, or else you'll be left behind.
Right. Yeah. It makes it fun.
Joe, really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks.